All right.
Put those headphones on.
Yeah, gotta look professional. All right. So Taylor, wanted to do a quick sit down with you.
I'll pull that microphone by your phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's probably
Now I can hear you.
there. You go, so people can hear me. But we're here to listen to you. So, um, let's start. I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper on some of the things that we've talked about, just to kind of clarify, some of your stances and things like that. And actually had some people reach out and ask me a very specific question. And I mean, I obviously personally know you, so I know your stance on it.
Yeah.
But myself being a veteran and that sort of thing, and a lot of the law enforcement out there and emergency responders, first responders, have reached out and asked, what is your stance on law enforcement, first responders? How would you address funding issues and ensuring that they have the proper equipment, training, things like that? Dealing, and I'm going to throw a couple of things at you. The homeless veterans,
Yeah.
issue, a lot of mental health, crises along those lines. And in something that you mentioned the other day, there's some significant portions of McKinney that don't necessarily fall under McKinney, but are receiving emergency services currently.
Yeah. ETJs. Yep.
So I know I threw a lot at you, but if you could dive into that.
Yeah. So I guess I should give us a little background of our family experiences within the military, because all of my brothers, except for I guess David's the only, me and David were the only two that. So my three other brothers all served in the military. Our father served in the military. I still remember, when I was a little kid and Dad had to go to basic training, and we were left with neighbors. Yeah, that was one of me and Robert had to go with this crazy guy that was very abusive, and so it was a very not fun experience when we were real little. So I'm very familiar with the stresses personally of when a dad is deployed. Yeah, our dad was deployed to Desert Storm, and that was we had kind of, I guess, as kids, we got used to kind of parents being gone.
Yeah, being military brats.
Yeah. And so, but it is not easy on families
at all.
It's not easy on the veterans that have to go and serve. Financially, that's one of the things that people, I don't think, really understand. I still remember when I was on my mission and 9/11 happened. And I remember one day standing on the South China Sea, like wondering what was going to happen with you.
Yeah.
I knew you were in the military, and I was like, well, I didn't know how serious of a war it would be.
Yeah, nobody did.
Yeah, and so it was, and I kind of felt hopeless because I was so far away. I was in the Philippines at the time, and so I'm very familiar with the military aspect of what it does to a family. Now, the agreement that we've kind of made with law enforcement and military personnel is, if you are going to go protect our country, we will make sure you're always taken care of.
Absolutely.
That's been the government promise from the beginning. Abraham Lincoln started even what's called aid and attendance and the pension. Those are two government programs for military veterans that are because of long-term care situations that are going without, that the government will give additional funds to help take care of people. But as an elder law attorney, I found out veterans don't know about these programs.
It's true.
They don't tell you guys.
They give us a book when we ETS that has like a bunch of stuff in it, but I mean, it's a pretty substantial book.
Yeah.
And most of us, we don't read words.
We do.
Yeah,
we don't think.
Yeah. It's a lot of guys like myself. Whenever we go to get out, we're just honestly, we're so like overwhelmed, especially after you've spent 20 plus years. You're focused more on, okay, what's next.
Yeah.
You're struggling with a lot of identity issues, and this plays into a lot of the homeless vet
Yeah.
problems and the mental health issues. Is you're focused on what's next. Who am I?
Yeah.
I've been Sergeant First Class Arvidsson for so long. How what am I going to be now? I
Yep.
don't wear a uniform. I'm not serving my country. It's becomes who you are. So a lot of these, people that get out, they're lost. Then you add on top of that, the traumas that they
Yeah.
went through, and then they come back and they're not getting the care they need, and they're just getting fed prescription pills, and it's just this snowball effect. Their families don't want nothing to do with them, divorces, list goes on.
Yeah. It because it's so much strain at so many parts of veterans or even law enforcement, because the hardest thing right now in our society for law enforcement is the fact that um, something can be filmed and
Taken out of context.
yeah, and the context is not completely there of what's going on. Now that does I have to always qualify that. That does not mean that everybody in law enforcement is doing the right thing all the time. And so, yes, that's why we have body cam footage. That's why we have things where we have to watch out, make sure that everybody's following the law. But at the same time, asking someone to go out into the worst situations that are going on in your community, and then you don't get to go home and take a break.
Yeah.
You got to go to the next situation. And, and that kind of,
it makes second decisions.
Exactly. And not having the full context. That's why usually within departments, it is better for the department to make determinations. Now, of course, you can get corrupt departments that know that they have officers that are either mentally not in the best position to be an officer, but and so it's a very complex issue. But at the same time, we have to understand what we're asking people to do when we're asking them to go to war. If we're asking somebody to defend and protect your community, that they're not going to be perfect, that there's going to be a lot of issues. And then as we go on, the bigger issues that are coming about is we don't pay military people very well.
No.
But the agreement was, if you do this, we'll take care of you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And
the healthcare and all that, and getting the retirement potentially, and yeah, it's not much, but
the problem is with the cost of living adjustments that are happening. We are not keeping up with inflation for our veterans, for our law enforcement, and we have to address that issue because we made a decision not to pay them enough to be wealthy.
Yeah.
To have, big 401ks that they could live off of.
Yeah.
That's, if you went to private sector, that's what you were supposed to do, is you got paid more,
yeah,
but you were supposed to take your money and invest it. And, but we don't do that for public servants. And so we have to get to a point where we understand that the cost of living adjustment, it's not keeping up. And so we have to figure out a way to compensate those who have served.
So, I mean, you obviously understand the issue and the problem. What would be your ideas or suggestions on, some sort of fund or, investment fund or something to shore up, those retirements for first responders, like paramedics, fire, police, things like that?
So like the city of McKinney does some cool things. Like right now on the school program, you have to have an officer in the schools. And so the city of McKinney, and I believe Frisco does the same thing, like Frisco ISD, they don't allow them to hire security guards. They have to use retired officers.
Nice.
And so it's looking at the situation that, hey, just because someone retires, they often have a skill set.
Oh, absolutely.
That is too difficult to train. And so allowing them to do other things in the community, even though it will cost more, is a far better way and more efficient way to use our resources than just handing out money, and allows, especially people that need those kind of services, to get jobs that are just not available.
Well, the taxpayer invested in training that person and paid them for decades, to where they have that, life experience and the on the job, training and experience to deal with, high stress situations and how to defuse and de-escalate and things like that, to where, why not, continue to use that asset? It's mutually beneficial.
And other things that we like, City McKinney has programs that are available that for people with low income and different things like that, and elderly, and it should be prioritized always that public servants, if we only have a limited amount that we can give out, then we need to prioritize that. There should be a lot of services tailored to that first.
Yeah.
And now, of course, understanding that, there's a lot of people that also need help and assistance. And so we don't want to limit other people's ability to get things, but realizing that that was the trade-off that was made. Yeah. They protect us in our society, and we have to understand and prioritize that the agreement was from the beginning that we would make sure they're taken care of for the rest of their life. And then when it comes to like homelessness and veterans, you are very familiar that there are a lot of beneficial treatment. Like right now, the current system that we use, prescription drugs to treat mental health, does not work.
No,
it's a system to enrich pharmaceutical companies,
absolutely,
at the benefit of veterans, when there are like
alternative
means, like ibogaine is one of them that it's legal in most countries. It's illegal in the United States to use ibogaine, but it has a 95% success rate in treating people with alcoholism. So understanding that, mainly that's state and federal laws that need to be changed, but this constant
reliance on prescription drugs,
the reliance on the prescription drugs, when there seems to be natural remedies that are available that are going to be significantly beneficial to people.
Absolutely.
And it's weird because the point of science is to find out things that work.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the whole
quantifiable results.
Exactly. But what has happened is science is hijacked right now by corporations for what turns profit.
Exactly.
But as on a city level, that gets really hard because you don't have any way to sway the laws. But it's understanding that treatments are available, maybe not here in the U.S., that are available in other countries, and maybe that's having resources available to let people know. Like I had a client that just came in, and her daughter suffers from alcoholism for most of her life, and she was just weeping, and she's like, "What should I do?" And I said, "Well, maybe talk to your doctor or talk to a professional about seeing if your daughter can go to this clinic down in South America that a lot of wealthy people use for it's very inexpensive.
Yeah.
But they use treatments that are not available in the United States." She had no idea that it even existed.
Most people don't.
Yeah. And so she was able, last time I heard, she was just telling me that she's going to send her daughter down there to get treatment, see if it works. I'm excited to see what she has to say.
No, that'd be really cool to find out, because I know quite a few people with severe PTSD and stuff like that have used some alternative and like a one-time treatment changes their life. Alcohol, not an issue. Prescription pills, not an issue. PTSD, not an issue. Not as much of an issue. They can function.
Yeah.
And rebuild personal relationships, things like that. So, and that's a huge part of the homelessness issue.
Yep.
And so, I think that, being able to have access to those sorts of things potentially could help quite a bit with the homelessness issue. Well, let's move on. I know that you have limited time. Let's move on to just one or two more things. Yeah, I know that as you can see that on the signs behind us, that your platform is changes coming, And I know from talking with you that that what you mean by that, as far as the future, everything is always evolving and changing. Technology, and we need to leverage that to create the best world possible. I mean, that's kind of the point of technology. So when you say change is coming, can you kind of dig in and dial in on that, and explain what exactly it means in general, and what it means to you as the mayor if elected?
Yeah. So change is coming as I'm not bringing change. Change is going to happen. But the real reason why I'm focusing on that is the better way of saying is the rate of change is coming very fast.
Yes.
And so for the longest time, I'm sure people know enough about history that, we were hunter gatherers for a long period of time.
Yeah.
We built civilizations and we were agricultural societies for a long period of time. That turned into, the Industrial Revolution, where we started building machines, and that lasted for hundreds of years instead of thousands of years. And then we hit the digital age, and we were, in our youth when computers started coming out, and that greatly changed everything. And now we've hit the fourth industrial revolution, which is AI and robotics. And each time one of these systems has been placed upon the other, things have changed at an accelerated rate.
Oh yeah, things are changing yearly now instead of over hundreds or thousands of years.
Yes, it's only since 2022 that large language models have produced AI, and what AI is doing now versus 2 years ago is vastly different.
Oh, absolutely.
So people think, oh, there's AI, and I experienced it a year ago, and don't realize what you experienced a year ago is completely different for what is out right now. And so, I teach a class to elderly seniors about how they can use AI and leverage it in their lives. And, it was shocking to them that they could as easily just take a picture of something.
Yeah.
And it could, tell them how to fix something or what that item is. And so there's all these things that are happening, but it isn't just technology that's changing. We, as a nation, have racked up a debt that is massive, and it is going to fundamentally change how the federal government has to function. The federal government is running out of the ability to continue borrowing at the rate that it is without inflating the currency. So we're at a crossroads to make a choice: either start cutting the programs that exist and get your budget under control and try to bring down the deficit, which is going to have significant economic repercussions, because about 40% of our economy depends on the federal government spending.
Yeah.
And spending more than it brings in to generate what we have today. So the economy, either that's the direction we have to go, or we have to keep continuing with the policy of inflation. Now, if we continue down that road of inflating the currency, everybody's like, well, let's just do that. Well, because there's a perception that's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. The reality is everybody's experiencing it's not. What happens when you inflate currency is those who have assets, they become wealthier, not because they're producing anything, but because the assets get artificially inflated, where those who work are punished. So the working class gets punished because their income will not keep up with inflation, because corporations can't keep your income going at the inflation rate, because there isn't actual goods and services that are being produced by just printing money.
Yeah.
And so that concept that we're going to keep punishing the workers will eventually break the system, because eventually people will just go, which is already happening.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to go to work. It's not worth it to me. A lot of young people feel this way.
The benefit outweighs the.
Yeah, because there's a lot of young people right now, and you're told, well, you can go work for minimum wage and get started in your life. Well, no one on minimum wage can afford to live anywhere.
No.
So, or provide food for themselves. So there's no point of going to work to not be able to survive. So they have to get a certain amount of pay. But even when you get to $15, $20 an hour pay, that is barely surviving, if you can at all, because you can't afford rent. You can't afford a vehicle. you can't. There's eventually an offset where they can't even get to work, and corporations and businesses can't pay the bottom level employees, $30-$40 an hour, because they can't generate enough income coming in to make that
profitable.
Exactly. And so that whole system is coming at a head where we have to eventually make the decision that we're going to have to break our system, which is going to cause significant financial difficulty for those who have assets, because the asset values will come down. But as we break that system and bring things back to where it's supposed to be, we'll get to a point where it can start fixing itself. And in order to do that, there's going to be a lot of pain, which it doesn't appear that any politician is willing to do.
Well, I mean, obviously, it'd be hugely unpopular, and chances of getting reelected are next to none. And to be honest, I'm seeing it right now. I mean, you can go on social media, and Bernie Sanders is starting to get a lot of steam because he's always the one that the solution is tax the rich. They have money, take their money and redistribute it, and that solves the problem. But if you dig deeper than the surface, it's like, yes, that puts a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't address, it's almost like taking a prescription medication.
Yeah.
It masks the symptom, but doesn't cure the disease. And the disease is that we have a government that spends too much. They print too much. And we are now in a position to where we're going to have to, we've been kicking the can down the road for so long. We're going to have to take a painful pill to fix the problem. And there's people that are genuinely hurting out there. And this is, I'm kind of segueing into my last question. Those that are out there, and I know that you're intimately familiar because, in your day-to-day, job, doing, wills and trusts and things like that, you deal with a lot of retired and elderly.
Yeah.
And they retired, some decades ago, and they had enough. But because property values have gone up and, as a result, property taxes and inflation, what used to be enough is either not enough now or getting really close to not being enough.
Yeah. And
so what would you do to help those people so that they don't become destitute?
The hard reality that we have to face is the programs that we use to solve problems aren't going to be there because as a nation, we got so used to the government taking care of us. And so that worked for a while because we were such a prosperous nation.
We actually built things.
Yeah. And then when it wasn't, we weren't profitable enough to do it, we just borrowed against now in order to pay for it back then.
And printed money.
Yeah. And now that's why we have a $37 trillion debt, is because not only were we borrowing for that, we were borrowing for everything that we possibly could think of. We had corporate welfare. We had welfare for everybody but the middle class. And so that has now caught up to us. And so that is why our economy just looks chaotic. You look online and asset values and stocks are shooting through the roof, and everybody's like, oh, we're in the golden age. We're just in an inflating age.
Yeah.
We really don't produce any more goods or services or add actual value. We just have more paper value, but it's not real actual things that are getting done, except for in the technology sector. Those, of course, are getting done, but that's such a small aspect of our society. But going down that road, as we move into that reality, eventually the system breaks. Okay. And reality comes to a head where we have to get back to certain things that are actually going to produce and actually add value. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, if we can get AI and robotics up before that system breaks, that will offer goods and services at such a decreased amount of increase the efficiency and bring down the cost so much that it'll be super beneficial. Our GDP will shoot through the roof. That is correct if we can get there before that happens. But in that meantime, the amount of pain that we're going to have to feel, because in order for AI and robotics to really offer value, it means humans have to be out of the way, which means job losses. And so what are we doing in the
lag time?
That lag time, that shift. Hopefully AI and robotics is so quick that it's not going to be a decade or 2 decades of a transition. It's going to be a few years, but we have to really hope that we move quickly through this next phase of a society.
Well, and I mean, you're running for mayor of McKinney, and I know that city officials might not have a lot of the legislative powers that they do at the state level and the federal level, but I would think that you at least have a voice, and so I guess my question would be, what do you see the role of the mayor to try to push for some sort of mechanism or some sort of plan for these changes, because or in your dealing so far, because I know you've gone to some meetings where they kind of give you some insight into hey, this is the goings on, this is how things work. Is there anything, are they planning on this stuff, or can you even speak on that?
Yeah, of course they we are lucky in the city of McKinney because they are very proactive, very good at adapting and trying to make things more efficient. But the amount of structured change that's going to be forced upon the city of McKinney, because it's not going to be this, oh, let's do this, let's be proactive and change and just this nice transition.
Yeah.
It will be forced upon us with the realization, because there will not be tax revenues that will be coming in at the rate that we're getting right now.
Yeah.
And so the city is going to have to figure out ways or cut down its services significantly in order to deal with the problem of like 40% of white collared workers being unemployed. Well, that starts happening. We're already in the housing bubble. It's already starting to correct. We're going to see how that's going to transition over the next couple of years. It could be a tsunami problem where house prices significantly come down, because if you have both house prices coming down plus the COVID relief packages go away that are artificially inflating, because people are like, well, there's not that many defaults that are happening in mortgages. Yet there are a significant amount of defaults happening. It's just not being reported because there's COVID money that's paying people's mortgages right now.
Well, I mean, it's similar to what happened in 2008.
Yeah,
is in the what was it, the big, what was that movie?
Yeah, The Big Short.
Yeah, The Big Short, where there was that one guy that was able to read between the lines and was like, these numbers aren't adding up.
Yeah, and
they started to dig down and come to find out that it was an artificially inflated market.
Yeah, and so if you have two headwinds of once taxpayers realize that they're funding a significant portion of people's mortgages right now, and they're not being reported as in default yet, and which they really are, because it's not like these people they're bad people or something like that. It's the reality of inflation has hit people so hard they can't even afford their mortgages. So we have that reality that's going to come ahead. Hopefully we don't have stacked upon that AI taking people's jobs at record rates. And so because generally what has happened in the past is when you have economic downturn, usually the people at the highest level with the biggest salaries aren't the people being let go.
Yeah.
And those are the individuals that drive most of the economy. Of course, everybody does drive the economy to a point, but when you have someone who has significant disposable income where he can go buy brand new cars, or he or she can buy big homes, when you lose 40% of those people, that's a hit everywhere across the board in every sectors of our economy. And that's going to be a very difficult absorption. And so the argument has been, well, we'll just stop it from progressing. And I've tried to explain to people, we could probably put laws in place to stop AI from taking jobs, but other countries won't, and they will surpass us.
Yeah.
We won't be able to catch up, and we will spiral out of control. So if the cat is out of the bag, I guess that's the terminology that people use sometimes, but now that this is here, the only way through it is to get through it as fast as we can. And
rip the Band-Aid off.
You got to rip the Band-Aid off. And so going through that and we need to, as a city, we have to understand that this is going to happen. And we can ease the pain by being aggressive of helping people get through to the other side, helping people re-educate themselves to get the jobs that they need to get, helping implementing the services and products into the city that decrease the amount of taxes needed to provide good services to your citizens, constantly being engaged. It's going to be a massive undertaking for the next 4 years. But the more proactive we can be to help everybody get to the other side, a better society. Because on the other side, it's a beautiful world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like if you can get to the point that we don't need lawyers like myself anymore, that's going to be a beautiful world for everybody but guys like me.
Well, yeah. I mean, it opens up other opportunities.
Yeah, and I have to be aware of that my job is probably going to be taken, and I just have to change.
Yeah,
I have to move and figure out, okay, what else could I do? And it's hard right now because we just don't know, because we don't know what it's going to look like. As things go along, things will open up. Opportunities will open up.
Always.
And so, but I want to get people across that you're like, oh, I don't want to lose my job. That's going to be horrible. But I mean, imagine a world that you don't need a lawyer. You can go to your computer and your computer can be your lawyer for you. Well, now you've even the playing field of justice among all your citizens.
Oh, yeah. No, and it's free.
Exactly.
And, you can represent yourself.
Or imagine what that could do for medical. A significant portion of our income goes to our health insurance and to the medical field. But if we could reduce the costs of providing for health 90%, well, that significantly decreases your expenses.
Yeah.
Now you don't need your health insurance that costs you. Food production, coming down significantly.
Housing, building housing.
Yeah,
if you have an army of robots that work 24/7, 365, they don't take sick days, they don't need vacation, they don't need L&I, they don't get injured. If they do, you repair them. It's you can build more affordable housing.
Yeah, and so in all these things, you can vastly decrease the cost to everything. And now, how will we work through that system? I don't know. That's going to be federal and state levels that need to deal with that issue. All I know is, as a city, you have to adjust quickly. And the people that are going to be leading cities are going to need to understand this and adapt quickly, or their citizens are going to suffer greatly for it. And so that is the vision of what is going to happen. It's already happening. Most people aren't aware of it. Us who are on the front line that own businesses, we know because we're dealing with it every day.
Well, and you're in a unique position. I mean, you have your, your law firm that deals with wills and trusts and things like that. So you have a very unique window into, what people are dealing with that are, at retirement age or preparing for retirement and
own a business.
Own a business, things like that. And then also the title company, that you have a very unique, insight into a lot of data and analytics on what's going on in the real estate industry nationwide, not just here in McKinney, but nationwide. Because I know that you've told me a bunch of stuff, and we've mentioned it on other shows. The issues that you're seeing in Florida and here in Texas, with a lot of mortgages that are in danger. So yeah, no, I mean you're definitely positioned in a very unique place to have your finger on the pulse of kind of what is coming, and just as far as pain and the potential of a better future if we navigate the waters properly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd like to thank you for your time. I mean, do you have any closing statements or anything you'd like to say in closing? Or
change is going to come, and we need to prepare for it by being innovative and adaptive, and do it as quickly as we possibly can to relieve the suffering on people. And those who will not adapt to this, it will come.
We'll put them on an island.
We can go back to the old ways.
Yeah, put them on an ice floe. Well, I'd like to thank you, and anybody that would like to, I know we're live. Anyone that would like to kind of hear of our future our continuing discussion. We're going to be going live tonight at what 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah,
where we'll be joined by Jeff and maybe a couple other people, and we'll just have some in-depth discussions about who knows what.
Yeah, we'll go through. Everybody on that show brings in a lot lot of interesting perspectives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeff the most.
But,
yeah. Again, thank you, and
well, thank you, Michael, and we can jump this and get this turned off here. We'll see you guys.